Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take good care. And Time is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get everyday update. By the year 2169, individuals are hereditarily built to halt maturing when they turn 25. Once that happens, a clock shows up on their arm with as it were 1 year cleared out. To keep on living they must work, since time is presently society's cash. This implies wealthy individuals are successfully godlike. The nation has been separated into zones called time zones to partition the distinctive classes, the wealthiest region being the modern Greenwich. In the meantime, within the ghetto, Will lives with his mother Rachel on a little loft, and they scarcely have any cash cleared out to outlive each day. Will needs to form a few cash on the side through time fighting, but Rachel precludes it since it never closes well. This doesn't halt Will from being a liberal individual, and at whatever point he bumps into youthful Maya on the boulevards, he gives her a few of his time so she can survive as well. Will and his best companion Borel work at the nearby plant, where they're continuously rising the costs of the snacks, and it's common to discover dead individuals that coordinated out on the floor. They're all paid by the day, but the production line continuously comes up with an pardon for why their workers didn't meet their standard and pay them less. One evening, Will goes to a bar where he utilized a bet to urge an hour a fellow owed him. He too meets Borel, who is cheerfully getting inebriated thanks to an insane fellow that's buying drinks for everyone. This fellow is Henry, whose clock features an entirety century. Will doesn't get it what a wealthy man is doing here and tries to caution him approximately the Minutemen, a group of criminals that take other people's time, but Henry doesn't tune in. Fair as Will fears, Pack Pioneer Fortis appears up and inquires Henry for a time fight. Everybody else within the bar runs absent except for Will, who covers up at the back fair in case. Henry acknowledges the challenge but inquires for a minute within the lavatory to begin with. Fair one watch goes with him, so Will takes the chance to knock the criminal out and elude with Henry through the back entryway. They run down many squares and stow away interior and surrendered production line, which can locks from the interior to be secure for the night. Will ponders what a wealthy fellow is doing within the ghetto, and Henry concedes he cleared out and used Greenwich since he's 105, a long time ancient and tired of living. When Will focuses out typically imbecilic, Henry's entertained by the boy's need of understanding of the world. He explains the taking a toll of living keeps rising within the ghetto to create beyond any doubt individuals keep passing on, since the rich can as it were live in the event that the destitute kick the bucket. Inevitably Henry and Will drop sleeping, and within the morning Henry takes advantage of waking up to begin with to pass all his time to Will, only keeping 5 minutes to himself. Will wakes up in no time a short time later and finds a message on the window saying do not squander my time. When he looks out, he sees Henry sitting on the bridge right some time recently he times out. Without taking note there are security cameras around, Will goes to the bridge to make beyond any doubt Henry is dead some time recently running absent. Minutes afterward, Henry goes to Borel's house where he bumps into Borel's wife Greta and their modern child. Henry talks to Borel in private and endowments him a decade, which matches the 10 years they've known each other. Within the evening, Henry goes to hold up for his mother at the transport halt, but she never arrives. It turns out Rachel as it were has an hour and a half cleared out, and the transport admission went up in the afternoon, so presently she can't afford it. It's a 2-hour walk to return domestic, meaning Rachel must run in the event that she needs to see her son again. Will also starts running when realizes what's going on. Mother and child collide into each other within the middle of the road, but shockingly it's as well late and Rachel times out in Will's arms. The following morning, the police constraint known as timekeepers finds Henry's body within the waterway. Specialist Leon is beyond any doubt he's been killed for his time, and orders his men to check the security film. Since of the point of the cameras, they can't see the body falling, but they do see Will's confront and expect he's behind Henry's passing. In the interim, Will needs to vindicate his mother's passing. He contracts a limo imagining to be a wealthy fellow that got lost and makes the driver take him to an used Greenwich, which implies paying an amazingly tall toll each time he crosses a border. Once he makes it to the city, he remains in a pleasant inn, and his nearness is taken note by socialite Sylvia. After resting, Will has a few nourishment whereas Sylvia observes him from a remote place. The server can tell Will isn't from around here, but she treats him well since he tips her liberally. She too focuses out that in the event that Will's going to the casino, he'll require better clothes. The reality that Will crossed so numerous time zones in a few hours shows up suspicious in the framework, permitting the timekeepers to discover his current area. Leon moreover realizes he's chased Will's father within the past. Within the evening, Will buys a proper suit and goes to the casino, where they inquire for an intentional gift of a year since he isn't apart. Will joins the poker table where he meets Mr. Weiss, a time-loaning businessman that doesn't falter to wager tall sums of time. Sylvia, who is Weiss' girl, moreover comes to the table, but as it were to observe, and Will keeps an eye on her whereas taking the hazard and wagering all he has. This turns out to be worth it since Will wins the amusement, which inspires Weiss and wins Will unwelcome to his following party. The following day, Will buys a really costly car and drives it to Weiss' party. Sylvia is exceptionally inquisitive approximately Will and welcomes him to move, telling him she can see he's likely from the ghetto. She concedes she some of the time begrudges individuals from the ghetto since she lives continuously encompassed by her father's watches without genuine flexibility, and she wishes she seen do something silly or worth something. Will drags her to the shoreline behind the house to go skinny dipping, which ought to check as something absurd. Sylvia's is reluctant at first, but before long joins him within the water and they examine the plausibility of doing more absurd things. When individuals start searching for Sylvia, she stows away with Will in a cave and inquires him to go back sometime recently they get into inconvenience. The match returns to the house through diverse entryways to dodge doubt. Weiss welcomes Will to play poker, but they're all of a sudden hindered by the timekeepers, who found Will's area by taking after the buy of his car. Will is taken to a private office for cross-examination, but when he tells them around Henry timing out on reason, they do not accept him and take most of his time, leaving him with as it were 2 hours for booking and handling. Leo tells Will he reminds him a part of his father, who Will doesn't keep in mind well. Weiss and Sylvia come to check on the situation, and Will takes advantage of the diversion to defeat the timekeepers up and take a weapon sometime recently getting away. He employments the weapon to seize Sylvia as his prisoner, and they run through the back entryway to take off in Will's car. Leon starts chasing Will all through the city and indeed oversees to hit his car from behind, but Will reacts by driving in reverse. He oversees to avoid a truck at the final moment, but Leon doesn't respond so quick and crashes against it, meaning Will gets to elude. As they make their way to the ghetto, Will inquires Sylvia for a few time, but she denies to assist him. When they reach the bridge, Will gets diverted by the security cameras and doesn't see the spike strip on the ground, which causes the car to crash. Both Will and Sylvia drop oblivious, and minutes afterward, they're found by Fortis and his men, who promptly start taking Sylvia's time. At that minute, the timekeeper's sirens can be listened drawing nearer, and the criminals run away, taking off Sylvia with as it were half an hour. When they wake up, Sylvia monstrosities out at the small time she has cleared out and inquires Will for offer assistance. Will finds it amusing how she's now in favor of sharing, but makes a difference her besides some time recently taking her into town. After they're gone, the timekeepers arrive to review the car, although Leon to begin with should inquire for his everyday pay, since he never carries more time than fundamental. Seeing the circumstance, Leon chooses not to chase after Will any longer since he's beyond any doubt he'll contact them to begin with. Will goes to see Borel to inquire for offer assistance, but Greta has awful news. Borel drank so much that he kicked the bucket with 9 a long time still on his clock. Sylvia begins freaking out once more, but Will takes note she has favor studs and drags her to the pawn shop. The proprietor is around to shut, but he makes an exemption when he sees how profitable the rings are. He too takes note how frantic they're for time and as it were pays them 2 days, which they have no choice but to acknowledge to outlive. Following, they go to a pay phone and will make Sylvia dial her house's phone so he can conversation to Leon. As they emancipate, Will inquires for 1,000 years to be conveyed to the timelines within the ghetto. Leon warns Will that he's getting to be as well much like his father and uncovers the man didn't die during a time fight like Will considers. He actually was doing something more unsafe. Will hangs up on him, and Leon tells Sylvia's guardians of the delivered, but Weiss wavers to donate absent indeed what for him is take altar. Will takes Sylvia to his flat to spend the night there, and Sylvia changes into Rachel's ancient dress. Sylvia inquires Will approximately his father, and Will clarifies his dad utilized to be an fabulous time fighter that instructed him some traps. To demonstrate his point, he grabs Sylvia's arm and appears him how to time fight. It's a battle of wills between clocks. His father instructed him to let the adversary think they have the upper hand, let his possessed clock nearly reach 0, and when the adversary is diverted by his approaching passing, turn the tables and take it all. Will utilized to think his father passed on a time fight, but he presently realizes he was probably murdered since he gave absent what he won. At that point Will and Sylvia shared what happened on their 25th birthdays. Will's clock begun when he was on the road, and he rapidly almost lost his additional year since they were in obligation. In differentiate, Sylvia had a peaceful awakening in bed and her father gave her a decade to celebrate. The following morning, Will observes the timeline building from the window, but shockingly they do not have any charity to share, meaning Weiss didn't pay the Ramsen. Sylvia is hurt by her father's need of care, but at long last gets it he got to be wealthy by stepping on other people's rights. Will tells her to go domestic, but Sylvia denies, causing them to acknowledge to work together and kiss. Sylvia does need to call domestic in spite of the fact that, so Will gives her the weapon to secure herself, whereas he observes from the corner. Weiss rapidly picks up Sylvia's call and overlooks her insuperable to caution her the timekeepers are coming to induce her. When Sylvia turns around, she sees Leon drawing closer Will, thus she shoots him within the arm. Will takes the chance to check Leon's clock and learns timekeepers do not keep much time with them to debilitate cheats. This prompts Will to grant Leon a few time in arrange for his colleagues to protect him. Whereas Will and Sylvia elude in Leon's car, Leon starts strolling out of town as everybody shouts at him for not insuring the small individuals. Gratefully his individual attendant salvages him some time recently things get savage. At some point afterward Sylvia focuses out they can't keep driving in a cop car, which gives Will an thought. He imagines to be a timekeeper to halt another car by the street, and after that they continue to take the wealthy lady's studs and her time, taking off her with as it were one day sometime recently running absent in her car. Once they're distance sufficient from town, they halt the car to observe the news and they find they're presently needed people. Will once more tells Sylvia to go back, but she denies since doing this can be much more satisfying. In the meantime Weiss is lying to his financial specialists, telling them everything is beneath control. Leon appears up to advise him this isn't a capturing any longer. Presently Sylvia is being chased after like a criminal as well. Weiss tries to bribe Leon into changing his intellect, but Leon turns him down and reminds him that on the off chance that Sylvia gets in contact with him, he should tell the attendants, something else he'll be captured for being an accessory. Afterward, Sylvia inquires Will in case he genuinely would grant absent time in the event that he had it. When Will affirms he would, she comes up with her reign. The match continues to take a Weiss cash truck truck and they crash it into a time bank, where they take as numerous time capsules as they can. The remaining capsules are left for the individuals in the ghetto to get. By the time the timekeepers arrive, there's nothing cleared out. Within the evening, Greta finds a time capsule among her clothing, cleared out by Will as an expression of remorse. Will moreover visit Maya, who is resting on the boulevards, and he clears out a few additional time for her as well. The rest of the time they stole is taken to the timeline for the receptionist to disseminate among anybody that needs it. At the timekeeper's office, Leon takes note there's time that shouldn't be there, and he considers Will's harming the exceptionally individuals he's attempting to help. The following morning, Fortis tries to ransack a man, but the fellow can at last stand up for himself since he bought a weapon. Fortis imagines to let him go, but as before long as the fellow turns around, he shoots the man besides. When Fortis checks the guy's clock, he's stunned to see he's squandered a part of time. Will and Sylvia start ransacking time banks all over the put, and their undertakings show up on the news. Weiss ponders in case his girl was attempting to murder him, but his spouse focuses out that Weiss nearly slaughtered her to begin with by choking her. A week afterward, Leon and his men at last discover Will's loft and get ready to capture them. In any case, Will listens to radio chatter from the window and quickly runs absent with Sylvia, bursting into a diverse flat to hop through a window at the back of the building, not getting harmed, much obliged to a secure landing on best of a car. Leon duplicates them and begins to chase them through town, and when Will and Sylvia take the chase to the rooftops, Leon opens fire on them. Will shoots back but falls flat, so he and Sylvia get off the roofs and take the transport. The driver considers the thought of giving them to the specialist, but Will bribes him into hush and they get to take off Leon behind. A few hours afterward, Will and Sylvia check in at a lodging, paying additional to have all the rooms and for the assistant not to tell anybody. When a modern client comes in, he's told the inn is completely booked, but he oversees to urge a fast sea of Will and Sylvia going upstairs. Afterward, Fortis and his men start undermining individuals on the roads for data on Will and Sylvia. At first, individuals remain quiet since they need to ensure they're savers, but Fortis at that point murders a man to appear how genuine he is. This motivates the fellow from the inn to confess what he saw. At the end, Will and Sylvia learn that to compensate for their heads is 10 a long time, which they consider lovely insulting. Abruptly, Fortis bursts into the room with his men and hold the couple at gunpoint, whereas Fortis clarifies the timekeepers take off him alone since he takes from his claim individuals, so presently he must re-establish a range. He claims he doesn't like murdering people in cold blood and challenges Will to a time fight. Will employments the trap his father instructed him, and when Henry starts looking at his clock, Will starts taking all his time. The watches come closer to observe and stun, and Will takes the chance to shoot them all. Sometime recently he makes Fortis time out for great. By the time the timekeepers arrive at the inn, Will and Sylvia are as of now gone. A few hours later, Will takes note costs and credit rates are being raised faster to make up for the unused time on the roads. Their small thefts aren't making a contrast. They would require a whole million a long time to indeed make a split. Luckily, Sylvia knows where to find such and some. The another day, Weiss is stressed approximately the circumstance and goes to work encompassed by more bodyguards than normal. The watches all of a sudden turn around when they distinguish a risk, but it's fair Sylvia reporting she needs to yield. Weiss accepts her and is ready to require her back. This diversion permits Will to sneak behind him and capture him as a prisoner. At that point, Will and Sylvia take Weiss to his office to form him open the securer, where he keeps a capsule with 1 million a long time. Weiss focuses out that giving a year to 1 million individuals as it were prolongs their anguish, which flooding the off-base zone with 1 million a long time may cripple the framework, so Will clarifies that's precisely what he needs to happen. Will and Sylvia elude after locking Weiss in his possess office. When the timekeepers learn almost the theft, they promptly go after them, blocking the bridge to halt them from returning to the ghetto. Leon is chasing them as well, and when he finds them, he concentrates so much on them that he overlooks to urge his everyday pay. The Guardians open fire on them, but Will fair disregards the bullets and drives through the time zone boundary, permitting him to reach the ghetto. Leon squanders no time and crashes his car against theirs. Will quickly clears out the vehicle and gives the million a long time capsule to Maya. Sometime recently he and Sylvia imagine to yield. A priggish Leon considers he's won, but at that minute the timeline declares there's time for everybody, and an energetic swarm fills the road, getting in Leon's way and permitting Sylvia and Will to run absent. Leon pushes people aside to urge back in his car and go after the thieves, but when they cross another barrier, Leon should take after them on foot. Inevitably he catches up to them, and Will surmises Leon utilized to be from the ghetto as well. Leon affirms this and clarifies he worked difficult to urge out, which is how things ought to be. At that point he tries to arrest them. Will points out there's no point since he and Sylvia as it were have a number of minutes left, so they'll kick the bucket before long besides. This makes Leon check his claim timer and realizes he doesn't have much time either since he didn't collect his pay. At that moment, his clock times out and Leon passes on right there on the street. Will and Sylvia as it were have seconds left, and they kiss to say farewell. In any case, Will realizes the keepers have time in their vehicles, so he runs to Leon's car to require a few for himself. Sylvia isn't as quick as him and fears she won't make it, but Will runs back to her and they meet midway, permitting them to share time before passing catches them. Back within the company, Weiss has given up and tells his employees not to do anything since it's over. Newscasts all over the country appear how individuals have taken to the streets. The production lines lie sit out of gear, and people are crossing the zones to make it to modern Greenwich. Specialists swear everything is beneath control, but everybody knows the framework will soon collapse. At the timekeeper's office, the representatives choose to go domestic since there's nothing they can do. Will and Sylvia are never caught, and they start going after greater banks tanks to keep the ancient framework from coming back. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.